Hello, this is Sip Mendes for Sip's Wood Chips, and today I want to talk about screw chucks. And screw chucks come in different sizes and shapes. Here's a real small one that goes right into my number 2 Morris taper on my wood lathe, and that's really good for making small things like chess pieces. If you like playing chess and you want to make your own chess set, you might use something like that to spin the different pieces. But here's another type, and this type is made to go in your chuck. You can open the chuck up. You can open the chuck and put this guy in here. And tighten it down. And it'll do the same as the other one that I just showed you. And that looks like that. But these are for making for small pieces. Again, things like chess sets, maybe dollhouse furniture, small things like that. The screw chuck I'm going to make today is going to fit into these jaws. These are 45mm spigot jaws, and they have they look like large threads on the inside to grab the spigot, and they also have a dovetail on the outside, so I can spin from the inside or the outside with these jaws, and I don't have to change chucks. So here's a screw chuck I made for it, and it fits in here, and then I can tighten it down, and it extends about 1 inch. And so for turning things like larger bowls, this works really great. Always use your tail piece for support on your bowl, but these work really great. So for this project, you need a piece of wood. This is a glue up made out of poplar, and it is 1 3/4 inches across, which is about 48mm. And as far as deep, it's 1 1/4, but I only need about 1 inch. So it only needs to be about 25mm deep. Then I'm also going to use a lag bolt for the screw. And this is a 1/2 inch, but you can use a 3/8 just as well. And it needs to extend through the piece of wood and out the other end. So by the time I get done with this one, it's going to be at least 1 inch deep. The first thing we're going to do is measure. We're going to put our piece of wood into the jaws, and we're just going to snug it down lightly so it doesn't move. And then we're going to make a line all the way around here, so we know, because we want our screw chuck to be even with the steel jaws. We want the steel jaws to do the work. Okay. Then we're going to take this out. And so we don't damage our jaws, we're going to extend this out about 1/4 inch. And then we'll spin it and trim it off. And I'm going to spin this at about 850 RPMs. And all I need for this is a 1/4 inch parting tool. This is just a little bit rough, so I'm going to go across it with just a 1/2 inch round nose. Okay. Next, we're going to drill a 1/2 inch hole down the center of this. I'm going to turn my lathe speed down to 500 RPMs. And I have a 1/2 inch brad point bit mounted in my chuck, Jacob's chuck. And we're going to drill all the way through the blank. Sounds like we're all the way through. And this should slide right through there. It's going to work great. Okay. I'm going to take this over to the grinder and grind off the tip a little bit. I want it to be blunt like this one here, the Nova one. And I want to leave only the threads. Okay, I hope you can see this okay. Light's kind of dim over here. And I'm just going to grind off just this little tip. That should be just fine. Before you remove your piece of wood here from the chucks, you want to mark your number 1 jaws. And I draw a black line with the Sharpie magic marker, both sides. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And then I'm going to write a 1 on here. And that way when I replace it, it'll be in exactly the same spot. Next I need to mix some epoxy. This is the last of my 5-minute epoxy, and I hope I have equal amounts. And I'm going to go ahead and mix this up really good. So I'm going to try to be generous with it. I'm going to probably get some on the threads of the lag screw, but that's okay. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the epoxy on the inside of this. Pretty good. And I'll put some around here, because that's where the lag screw is going to set. I'm going to put quite a bit in here, in these last few threads, because those need to grab good. Okay, and I'm going to push this guy through here, and in there, and the last of this epoxy I'll put around the top here. Get in there as best I can. Take up any air spaces. Maybe once it's hardened, I'll take it off with the tool, or maybe just sand it off. Okay, that needs to set for about 5 minutes, but I usually let it set 10 or 15. I have a little bit of epoxy on those top threads, and I'm going to go ahead and soak a corner of a piece of cloth with isopropyl alcohol. Just a little bit of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and that dissolves the epoxy if it's still wet. I'll try to take that off there. Okay. And just make sure it's set in there good and tight. Well, there's my finished screw chuck. And this should be good for large timbers. But with all tools, make sure you follow the instructions that came with your equipment. Be very careful. Always keep the tailstock up against the work until you get it round and balanced, and then only use light cuts until you cut your dovetail. It's only intended to be used until your dovetail is on there. Okay. Now I've got a large one for heavy timbers, and then a smaller one for smaller timbers. And these should be much better for green wood. Last time I used this one on green wood, it really didn't get a good enough grip. This should work a lot better on green timber. So if you enjoyed this video, click on like, and don't forget to subscribe.